Hey, Walter Sorrells back with more tips for the knife maker. Today I'm going to talk about one of the most useful tools for knife makers and why I was wrong about them. I'm talking about these calipers. So when I first started doing videos on YouTube like 15 years ago, I did a whole series of videos about knife making tools, and one of them that I talked about was these right here, precision calipers. Now, since then, I've done some other videos on the subject, and my basic line has always been the same, and I'll tell you what it was and why I think I was wrong. By the way, stick around till the end, because once I finish talking about what kind of calipers that I recommend you use and why, I'll give you some hints on how you can get the most out of your calipers and improve your knife making in the process. All right, now one quick note, this isn't really one of my normal Friday Fives where I talk about things that are going on in the shop and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, just to catch folks up on the knife giveaway from last month, we have a winner. His name is Nate Wheeler. He's a viewer from Alabama. He won the knife, so congratulations, Nate, and also thanks to everybody who signed up for my mailing list and got in on the little competition. All right, so back to the topic at hand. Let's talk about calipers, what they are, and how knife makers can use them. You know, when I first started making knives, I barely had any tools at all, and I certainly didn't have any calipers. I really didn't even know what they were. But over time, as I got more invested in precision type work, and in particular, as I started using machine tools like mills and lathes and stuff like that, I just started reaching for my calipers more and more. And once I got used to them, I just found a million uses for them in the knife making shop. Now, in simple terms, calipers are used for measuring stuff. So if I want to know the diameter of this, I can use a pair of calipers. That right there will tell me exactly how thick this thing is, what the diameter of this piece of rod is. Now, they do it with a lot more precision than the old standby that we've used since elementary school, which is the ruler. I thought I had one here, but I don't. Anyway, we all know what a ruler is. A good set of calipers is going to comfortably measure to the thousandths of an inch or to the hundredth of a millimeter, which is very, very small. It's down in the range of, the thickness of a hair. Anyway, like I said, you can not only use them to measure diameters, but you can measure the thickness of pieces of stock. I don't have one here, but we can measure a little, like this little piece of wood or whatever. Now, the easiest type to use are the ones that I was just holding up here. Digital types, the gold standard type electronic calipers, Mitutoyos, and there's some other brands that are in that vein. They'll run anywhere from $150 up to, you could be talking $1,000 depending on the make and the model, how big they are and all that sort of stuff. That is an awful lot of money for something that has a tendency to get dropped on the floor, drowned in coolant, oil, water, whatever. It's easy to break them. And so I have a hard time spending top dollar on these things when I know that their life is probably kind of limited. Real quick here, guys, if you've been enjoying all the free content I've been offering on YouTube for the past 15 years and you want to give back to the channel, there's a way. It's called Patreon. All my Patreon supporters at any pledge level get plans to most of my builds, plus other bonuses for higher pledge levels, plus you get the good feeling of helping out the channel. So help us, help you. Link in the cards and description. Thanks, and now back to work. So what are some alternatives? Well, the oldest style of precision calipers, and these are probably going back to the 19th century, are vernier calipers. If you've used vernier tools, they have two sets of hash marks, and you have to line up this one thing, and then you measure all this other little. It's kind of a pain in the neck. They work fine, and they're potentially as accurate as anything else, but it takes a good bit of squinting and concentration to make them work, a little bit of practice. So honestly, to me, those are a pain in the neck to use, and you very rarely see anybody using those anymore. It's been a long time since anybody used them. So The alternative to that, and this is sort of what came between the modern digital and the old vernier, is a dial caliper. So the way these work is that they have two sets of measuring hash marks, or whatever you want to call it. First are little hash marks along this sort of ruler edge here, which are measured in, it could be millimeters or it could be tenths of an inch or whatever, but you read along there, and then there's a dial right here that gives you a secondary measurement. So like if I pull this over here, I go to 4/10 of an inch here, and then I measure along here, and it's 33 thousandths. You add those together, that's 0.4 plus 33, that's 0.433 inches. Okay, so here's the deal. My recommendation, and this goes back to one of these really, really early videos that I made, like 15 years ago, and I've been reiterating this in a number of other videos since then. My recommendation was to skip the fancy Mitutoyos and the other high-end digitals and just buy cheap electronic calipers that you basically can get for 20 bucks. These are SPIs. They're a little better than that, but they're still not a super high-end type. You can buy them for like 20 bucks. These are a little more expensive, but I've got other instances, $20, $30. And buy a bunch of them. You've always got one at hand. You got some spares, whatever, and when they crap out, which they always do, you just throw them away like you would, a used paper towel, and you buy another pair. That's the theory. Now, just in case you're curious about the accuracy of the El Cheapos, I always check them for accuracy when I buy them. I use a 1-2-3 block or something with a known distance, and I check them on that, and I've found that they're just as accurate right out of the box as the fancy ones. So that would seem like the smart play, right, to just get these and chuck them. But you know what? I think I was wrong. So what is it that I do now? How did I change my mind? Well, what I do now is I use dial calipers. You can buy very nice ones. This is a pair of Brown & Sharps. They're still very accurate, very smooth. You can buy Mitutoyos. This is a Mitutoyo dial caliper. Starrett makes them. I think I have a Starrett pair. You can buy them for like $30, $40, $50 on eBay, and these are really well-made things as opposed to some of these cheaper electronic ones. Now, I won't lie, using a dial caliper takes a little more practice, a little more concentration. My 62-year-old eyes are not as good as they used to be, and sometimes I have to squint a little harder, but they're not hard to use ultimately. And the most important thing here is the batteries never die, the LEDs don't mess up, the buttons don't fall off. All these problems that, basically reliability problems that cheap calipers are prone to, and some expensive ones too, frankly, these are not. They're rock solid, and they're high quality, high precision tools. They work great. So why did I change my mind about these two types of calipers? Pretty simple, really. First, I work in an unheated shop, so in the winter, batteries do not play well with cold weather. And so you have these little tiny batteries in here, and I constantly was coming out in the winter when it's cold weather, and they've been sitting here sometimes overnight when the temperature might have been 15, 20 degrees. Even though I warm up the shop a little bit by the time I get in here, I'd start using them and the screens would start flashing, or, they just wouldn't work at all. And, I'd be chasing around the shop looking for a pair of calipers that would actually work. But beyond that, look, they're cheap for a reason. And my recommendation, I know, is to plan for that. You chuck them when they're done, blah, blah, blah. But I just got tired of doing that. They'd always go down when it was least convenient, and then I'd be hunting around all over the shop for a pair that I was pretty sure still worked, and it was just a headache. So these right here, they just work all the time. It's cold, they're still working. The buttons don't fall off. So I just switched my I switched my approach. Now, footnote here, if you got the scratch, I mean, by all means, go buy the Mitutoyo digitals. They are the easiest thing to use. Buy them from a reputable supplier, though. There are tons and tons of cheap Chinese fakes out there. Just buying stuff off of, eBay used. It might be a real Mitutoyo, it might be not. So you don't know. So for me, the best kind of intersection of cheapness and reliability is used dial calipers. All right, now, quickly, a few things about using calipers. The basic mode of operation is pretty obvious. It's just what I showed you before. You take these jaws here, gently squeeze them together, read the numbers along the hash marks along here, and then the numbers on the dial, add them together, and that gives you your reading. However, there's a lot of other stuff you can do with them. If you want to measure the diameter of holes, that's what these little pointy jaws, or whatever you want to call them, are right here. You can read internal diameters here. It's not the most accurate way of doing internal diameters. There are things like snap gauges that will give you better readings, but for a lot of the stuff that you're going to be doing as a knife maker, if it's off by a couple of thou, you're still in the right ballpark, and that's fine. You can also use them as depth micrometers. This little piece that sticks out the bottom that seems like, well, why is this annoying little thing sticking out of here? Well, the reason this annoying little thing's sticking out of here is because you can use it as a depth mic. So if I'm measuring this, I just bring this down like so, and I'll touch this to here, and the bottom of this is touching whatever surface I want to measure to, and that gives me a reading just like if you were using the jaws. Again, it's not as accurate as an actual depth mic, which has got a better surface along the bottom and, whatever, but it still works. Again, so if you're doing rough and ready kind of measurement of stuff, you want to measure the thickness of handle scales, or you want to measure how deep a hole goes or something, it's a very simple and easy way of measuring a distance. Also, depending on the way that they're made, and some of them are made differently than others, they'll typically have a little shelf right here, and you can use that to measure off of a surface. So I'm going to measure, say, from this surface to this surface, and I can just run this along here until that runs into the bottom of here, and again, I get a reading. Now, in this particular case, if I'm measuring from this surface to this surface, it's not going to be the same measurement as this. I have to actually add in this little amount, and different manufacturers may have slightly different values for what you have to add there, but still, it's, the basic method works great, and you just have to know how to do it, but it gives you an alternative for measuring distances so that you don't have to. I mean, this is something that I have to admit I do pretty frequently, is I'll measure like this, and I'll kind of eyeball it and get a distance. And sometimes, that eyeball type distance, it's a little better than you might get with a ruler, but not quite as accurate as the tool is ultimately capable of doing. Anyway, last point here is, what might you do with calipers in the knife making shop? I'll tell you something that I constantly use them for is, I'm grabbing a drill bit. I have drill bits that I know exactly what they are, and they're sitting in marked containers and all that sort of thing. But I also have just like a lot of drill bits sitting over near my drill presses that I used for this or that, and I just threw them in a drawer. So is that a 1/4-inch drill bit, or is it something close but not quite? Well, just grab a pair of calipers and you'll know. And there's a lot of other stuff. I mean, I'm making a knife for a video right now. So, let's say I wanted to know exactly how thick that was. Well, there it is. It's 0.260 thick. All kinds of things you can do. I could go on all day, but I really do a lot of measuring of you know, just little pieces that I'm putting together to make a knife, and this tool is the one that I always reach for. Now, the limitations on this are roughly 1/1000th of an inch. It's kind of a plus or minus a thou. Some might be a little better than that, some a little worse. What if you need a little more precision? Well, that's where you're looking at a micrometer, or there are a lot of other ways of measuring things more accurately than this. But for most knife shop uses, this is what I'm gonna reach for when I wanna measure something. So, overall point here, you know, when I'm in the knife shop, as I learn more things, and I learn stuff every single day, I'm always willing to change my mind about how I do stuff. You know, if something's not working, don't be stubborn, don't be mad and, you know, fight the world. Be willing to change. Hey, so I was wrong. Move on. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and keep on making those knives. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like what we're doing here, please subscribe and make sure that you click on that bell so you get notified of all the latest videos. Want to buy a knife from me? Check out my modern blades at tacticsarmory.com. Digging the channel? You can support our video making efforts on Patreon. You know, I've been banging away on these videos for like 10 years, so I hope you'll show some love for all that hard work. Link in the cards and descriptions. Finally, if you're interested in making Japanese swords, check out my full line of Japanese sword videos where I show how to forge Japanese swords as well as how to polish them and how to make fittings, handles, and scabbards. WalterSorrellsBlades.com.